Hello, welcome again to another Tweed Renegades podcast. This is Plato Sandylands, and as usual, on the line we've got Milton Johnson. I was just reading some sarcastic rubbish in the Fairfax papers. It's just incredible what passes for political commentary these days. It's just a sarcastic, cathartic piece by some lefty who's complaining about how once Tony Abbott gets in, all of these conservative commentators will have nothing left in their lives. Their whole meaning for their existence will have disappeared because Julia Gillard will no longer be in power and they'll have nothing to complain about. Interesting point. Quite funny that this bloke's doing the same thing, complaining about Abbott, and Abbott's not even in yet. So there's hypocrisy for you. Does raise an interesting question, though. It just makes you wonder what some of these partisans are going to do with their lives once Julia's gone, because obviously as soon as Abbott gets in, all the partisans will just completely stop complaining and they'll be satisfied because now everything's fixed because the Liberal Party are back in. For people like us who aren't partisans, it's a little bit different because we can assume that Abbott's going to be pretty well useless, obviously better than Gillard. But, you know, he's not going to be breathtakingly visionary, and yet will no longer have the hope of something better.
Yeah, but I mean, look, the thing is, at the end of the day, the only reason I would want Liberals in is simply because they're going to waste less of our money. Now, I don't know that you can hope for any more these days in our current climate than for people not to waste so much more of your money and for people not to... And then, of course, there's the rules and regulations things. Labor tend to feel that everything, any perceived ill can be solved by government regulation and the increase of the nanny state. So it's just for that reason would be the only reasons that I would prefer Liberals, just out of I guess, self-preservation.
Indeed. Well, wasting less of your money is about all you can hope for these days. And funny thing is, even though he was an utter waste of space, I actually didn't mind Ted Baillieu for that reason. I mean, the best government you could hope for these days is one that does nothing. So, in a sense, he actually wasn't that bad. It was minimal government.
Yeah, that's right. Well, I do nothing, but I wonder if he... I know he got rid of a few public servants and whatnot, and I'm not sure to what extent he paid off any of the debt that Brumby left behind, but still, I mean, hopefully this naphthalene guy can... look, I just want naphthalene just to get in, that's all.
I just want him to prevent Labor from getting in and wasting all of our money again. That's the only thing I care about.
Yeah, that's it. That's all the Liberals exist for, right? To stop Labor Party from getting in and stuffing things up.
Yes.
And I mean, naphthalene is a pretty boring kind of character too.
I know. I mean, that he was bloody opposition leader 10 years ago, and everybody was like, "What a boring wanker! I'm not going to vote for him."
Yeah. Well, that's the kind of leader that Victorian Liberals love.
Exactly. That's right. Unfortunately.
The other thing I've noticed, of course, is that the Liberals never wind back any of the social engineering that Labor do. They just stop. They just they hardly ever do it, right? Unless it's to do with like economics, unless it's to do with like the fair work reforms. They'll have these labour market reforms. They'll try and stop that from happening, or the power of the unions. But they'll never do anything culturally. Like they'll never say, look, we're the Freedom Party. We're going to wind back all this nanny state, but let's campaign on that.
Well, Abbott did say he was going to get... Didn't Abbott say explicitly he was going to get rid of the vilification laws?
That's right. Yeah, well, Abbott, to his credit, he has specified a couple of things.
Don't give him credit till he does it. But I'm surprised, though, that they actually said explicitly they would do it.
Yeah, well, that's good. I welcome that, because that's just too far. I mean, if any party that's called the Liberal Party, which purports to be a party of freedom, that's the least they can do, right? Is to stop people from being thrown in jail because they've got the wrong opinions.
Yeah. So, I mean, if they actually do that, fine. But, I'll believe it when I see it, basically.
Well, one thing I know that Tony Abbott will do, he will get rid of the carbon tax.
He's not going to be able to, because he probably won't have control of the Senate.
Yeah, well, okay. Well, assuming he has control of the Senate, he'll do it. I mean, he said he pledged in blood that he would do it.
Yeah, look, I think he probably will, but even so, I mean, I would not put anything past politicians these days. I mean, pledge in blood basically just means nobody believes this anymore, I'm taking it to a higher level. And then, probably the day will come when politicians will break a pledge in blood, and then it'll become, oh, I pledge on my grandfather's grave and a stack of Bibles, and then it'll be, I pledge on my grandfather's and children's graves and a stack of Bibles and blah, 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 blah.
It'll be like something like up the ante. It'll be like, I'll kill my mother if I break this.
Exactly, yeah. I think he probably will try to get rid of it at this stage, but mark my words, the day will come when a politician breaks a pledge in blood.
Yeah. I mean, the other thing is that if, given that Tony Abbott has said the pledge in blood, he might be, if he doesn't have control of the Senate, he might have to make some compromises with whoever holds the balance of power to say, okay, well, we'll get rid of the carbon tax, but then as a result, we've got this, that, and the other instead.
Well, who's he going to make a compromise with? I mean, the Greens are never going to get rid of the carbon tax.
Well, you're assuming that the Greens will hold the balance of power. They may not.
They might not, but then who would hold the balance of power?
Hopefully someone like the Shooters Party or the Christian Democrats or something.
They might not, but then who would hold the balance of power?
Yeah. Well, or a conservative independent or something. But, the Greens holding the balance of power would be the worst thing that could happen.
Oh, yeah.
I'll tell you what, the best thing that would happen would be that, of course, we know that Libs are going to win in the House of Reps. The best thing would be that the Greens actually have no real power.
Yeah, well, obviously it's a half-Senate election, so there's still a chance that they'll have some power, but obviously their popularity is waning, so I think the days of them sharing government are numbered.
That's good. I mean, the thing is that the Greens have been exposed as the extremists that they are, but not just extremists. Extreme is a relative term. They are complete socialists.
Yes, of course, the situation that we're discussing, all of this relies on the assumption that it's going to be Abbott versus Gillard at the election, and that's looking less and less likely. There are some very strong rumours going around that Gillard's going to be leaving on Wednesday because she's been tapped on the shoulder and that she's going to be replaced by somebody else, most likely Kevin Rudd. And they think that the reason why it's going to be Wednesday is because it would give the new leader one day in Parliament. It would be the last sitting day in Parliament for this session.
But the thing is, I can't see Julia Gillard stepping aside, so I don't know what those sources are talking about. Because if she is the sociopath that we all know that she is, wouldn't she be more inclined to go to the Governor-General tomorrow and force an election within the next 30 days, file a writ or whatever they do, right? And tell the Governor-General that she's going to have an election so that she will be the leader. You'd
think so, but then if she's just completely lost the support of the party and she does something outrageous like that, I mean, is it really worth her doing that? She's going to lose it and she's going to have the party not behind her at all.
Yes, but if she was concerned for not having the party behind her, she would have left some time ago, wouldn't she?
Yeah, but she's probably got this illusion that she can fight on until September.
Yeah, well, that's true. I mean, I just don't know where she gets her optimism from. I mean, everyone hates her. She still thinks that everyone just loves her. I mean, I don't get it.
Yeah.
If I was in her position, I'd be like, all right, it's obvious that people hate me. That's it. I don't know. I'll give up, But she just keeps popping up with her big fat ass.
Well, that's a sociopath for you.
That's what I mean. I don't know how they have such a disconnect between the reality and her own bloody world.
I know. I'm worried if Rudd does come back, because I would not be surprised if Australians would be that stupid that they'd re-elect him. And I know everybody's going on about, the news poll is just a rogue and this and that. Honestly, the situation is so unique now where nobody has any respect for any politicians. If somebody comes up that's relatively likeable, Australians are that dumb, they'd probably vote for them. And I think Rudd is, in their eyes, he's relatively likeable compared to Abbott and Gillard. So they'll be like, oh, welcome back, Kevin. Yeah, we'll take you. We just don't want to hear from these other arseholes again.
Yeah, and also the thing is the fact that how he got dumped and all that, he's going to get all this sympathy, and everyone likes a story where someone was treated poorly and then they got their own back.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I think probability-wise, I think the Liberals would still win it because of the seats and just all the other opinion polls being so bad. But he's got a chance. We can't be like these complacent conservatives who just say, "Oh, it's just a rogue." Kevin Rudd can't save them. Blah blah blah. You just never bloody know.
Yeah, I mean, look, if Julia Gillard was leading the party, of course, the coalition would win. But I'm not so sure about it with Rudd.
Yes, I'm worried about it. The Liberal Party, of course, would then have a whole heap of footage of Labor Party members criticising Rudd, especially there were a lot of comments made after his failed challenge last year. But you just wonder if they'd even use it. I mean, sometimes I just really can't understand how these political strategists get paid to come up with these ridiculous strategies they put forward.
Yeah, it's like the Conservatives, they lack the animal instincts that the left-wingers have, the Machiavellian instincts or something.
Well, I wouldn't credit the left with having much in the way of instinct, judging by Gillard's performance. I mean, it's just getting more and more ridiculous by the day. I mean, did you see that new Twitter photo of her?
Yeah, that's right. That was just creepy. Like, she just pinched someone's kid and said, oh, here we go. It's like, and why would you even do that? I mean, that's another sociopath thing that she's got. I mean, why would you even do that? Like, everyone knows she's childless. And so she just, like, says, all right, let's put a kid in front of me. It's just so transparent.
Well, yeah, I mean, that one was creepy, but I was talking about the new one. Have you seen the new one?
No.
She got rid of that photo and she's put in a new one now. Go look on her Twitter profile now. It's just, It's ridiculous. She's got, like, her nose in the air staring out into space. It's like, I couldn't put my finger on what it was trying to be, but I knew it reminded me of something. And then I pinpointed what it was that it reminded me of. It looks like Che Guevara. Go and look up a picture of Che Guevara. He's got exactly that same visionary, staring out into space kind of look about him.
Oh, yeah, there it is. Did that Scottish prick tell him to do that?
Oh, we don't know, but I'm sure he did. It goes along with the other pieces of genius that he's come up with, like putting the glasses on and, you know. It's like...
That's ridiculous.
You know, Julia, I think what you need to win is I think you need to wear a pair of glasses. And then what we'll do is we'll slap you up in front of a screen and we'll take a picture of you where you look like some dictator who's staring out into space. That'll really get people on side. They'll think you mean business.
I wonder what's going to happen with John McTernan after the election.
Yes, he'll be struggling for a bloody job.
But then he would say, look guys, I didn't have a lot to work with. He's like, come on. I mean, you can't. I tried to polish a turd. I did the best I could, you know.
Well,
give me something better.
Yeah. I mean, if I was running her campaign, I could do so much with it. But then, like I said before, it kind of relies on me being able to get her to do something good. Whereas, obviously, being a sociopath and obviously hating Australia, she's like just totally opposed to doing anything good for the country.
Renegades.
Now, Rand Paul, in the past couple of weeks, took quite a stand in the US Congress. He spoke for 14 hours just to try to get an answer from a man who was going to be appointed as one of America's top spies. He was trying to get an answer from him about whether he would be prepared to kill Americans on US soil using drones. So obviously that's showing some guts from Ron Paul's son. Previously, I've been disappointed with him because he's much more of a neocon than his father and seems to be a lot more compromised in his position. But, obviously, if this thing was for real, then good on him. Although, unfortunately, I just have to be suspicious about everything that takes place in American politics because so much of it is staged.
I think the fact that only a handful of people actually stood with him while he was asking something as basic as, can you guarantee that there'll be no Americans killed on US soil, says a lot about other parliamentarians in America. And the fact that the elite are just like, they probably see him as some kind of a pesky outsider, still on this libertarian kick. It's like, listen, we are. I don't know. It seems to me like he's genuine. He's on the outside. He's an outsider, I guess you could say.
Well, you may very well be right. I definitely don't have a firm opinion on that. It's just my resignation, unfortunately, about American politics and the knowledge that a lot of the time things that happen over there are staged. One of my concerns is that Ron Paul obviously was a true libertarian. His son is a lot less so. Now that Ron Paul is gone, there's still going to be a certain momentum there. He had a lot of momentum going into last year's election campaign. What are the elites going to do with that momentum? Maybe they're going to funnel it all into Rand Paul, who is a lot less effective than his father, and maybe those people, if they've got nowhere else to go, will just settle for the compromised son instead.
Yeah, well, I guess they did that with the Tea Party. That was an organic movement which turned into some kind of a big, Republican takeover. But the Republican parties divide themselves into two. They divide themselves into the craggy old rhinos who are just like, yeah, we're white. Are you white too? That's fantastic. And the Libertarian Republicans. And the Libertarian Republicans are the new batch of Republicans who are genuinely concerned about civil liberties and the way America's heading. The other part of the Republican Party is happy just to say, hey, we've got money. But yeah, Republicans are split into two. So Barack Obama's got pretty much 100% of those who are dependent on welfare, which is what Mitt Romney said. So, and so that's pretty much it. I mean, I think the Republicans have demographed themselves out of the market. They're never going to appeal to Hispanics and blacks and Jews and whoever, and even Asians, surprisingly, vote for Democrats. So basically, okay, the Republican Party is the white party, but there's fewer whites. So they're basically like, it's going to be Democrats and ad infinitum now, isn't it?
Yeah, well, I suspect they may still have a role to play. I suspect when America gets to the breaking point where people are just basically struggling to make ends meet, and I mean, we're fast approaching that point already, the Republicans will probably put up some kind of Ron Paul alternative who turns out to be completely ineffective, but I suspect that they'll put themselves forward as being the true alternative and then fail in that role.
Yeah, I reckon they'll put some non-entity like Mitt Romney, but whoever the non-entity is, and they'll have Rand Paul as the vice president or something. They'll give him some kind of thing so they can say, hey, there's libertarians in the camp too. Let's all get together and vote Republican. Yeah,
or they may even put forward a president who claims to be a libertarian. I mean, we had about 4 Republican candidates vying for the nomination last year who were pretending to be Ron Paul.
Yeah, that's true. I think it might be easier for them just to go with business as usual and simply to try and blockade the libertarians, the younger Republicans, to simply say, look, okay, we've got a libertarian here, he's the vice president and all that. At the end of the day, he's going to have no real power.
Yeah, well, they're going to have to put forward something eventually. They can't continue with business as usual forever. Otherwise, as you said, they're going to be dead.
Yeah, that's right. Something mild that can be co-opted or something, like the Tea Party, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Like Sarah Palin was, how did the Tea Party went from being don't tread on me, libertarian, don't take away my guns, don't spy on me, don't take away my rights and all this kind of stuff, First Amendment, etc., to Sarah Palin, yes, I'm part of the Tea Party. Where the hell did she come from?
Yes, and yet you still get some of those mainstream media types talking about how extreme the Tea Party is. I mean, if some non-entity like Sarah Palin is right at home there, how extreme can they be?
Yeah, that's right. Sarah Palin tweeted, I support Rand Paul on the floor today.
Oh, there you go. There's the first sign there's something wrong there.
No, she's just playing her part as the Tea Party, of course. Yeah, but at the end of the day, she's just a TV celebrity now. She's got this, show about Sarah Palin and her kids or something, and they go hunting for, I don't know, some redneck paradise show. They'll go hunting and fishing together in the Alaskan waters and whatnot.
That's ridiculous. That's like, we know that 90% of Republican supporters are rednecks, so let's just put forward some completely wet non-entity as being a redneck, and then everybody will love her.
That's right. Hey, Sarah Palin's one of us. She's white. She likes hunting.
Oh, honestly, I know Australians are stupid, but it's just not the same level of stupidity until you've witnessed the power of cable TV.
Or the power of high fructose corn syrup and accumulated fluoride.
Oh, yes, they love their high fructose corn syrup and fluoride in America. I think somebody needs to do a filibuster to raise awareness of people having their brain power taken away by these poisons. Maybe we could do one. Maybe we could do a duo filibuster. It'd be so much easier talking for 14 hours when you can have a dialogue.
Yeah, I mean, have you heard that pop song, filibuster much better with two?
Yes. No, I haven't heard that, but yes.
Filibuster takes two. I just made it up. I wish I could do... No, actually, I don't, because imagine Julie Gillard with filibustering.
Oh, no.
And furthermore, I just want to...
if they had a filibuster in Australia, they'd be like, oh, I can't be bothered, I'm going home. See you later.
I'm knocking off.
Yeah. Okay, good night. Whatever, you can talk to yourself if you want, but I'm going home.
Well, when Rand Paul was doing his filibuster, he just had someone handed him some peanuts or something, so he was chewing them and had a bit of a glass of water and a Snickers bar or something, and that was
really? The whole filibuster was probably just a big product placement for Snickers. That's probably what the whole thing was. No, but probably the closest thing we've ever had in the Australian Parliament was what's his name? Bernie Finn. He spoke for, it was 4 hours against the abortion bill. So that's probably the closest we've had. That was his mini filibuster.
That's true. 4 hours, wow. That's, that's another example of why the Libs Labor introduces these things like full-term abortion, for heaven's sake, infanticide, and the Liberals don't even have the balls to rescind that, especially when it comes to abortion. So Labor's like, what does it tell you about a society where they think it's all right? Abortion's acceptable, but it's not acceptable to not have abortion.
Disgusting. And there's that glimmer of hope, I guess, that MP that resigned wants to discuss abortion or something. I bet that comes to nothing, though.
Yeah, that's right. But remember George Bush, the pro-life president? He was. I think his concession to Conservatives was, well, we're not going to use US money, foreign aid, to support abortions overseas, to pay for abortions overseas. Like,
thank you. Oh, the unborn babies of America, thank you for that, Mr. Bush.
Oh, I've just looked at news.com here, and it's got about Bin Laden's son-in-law pleads not guilty. How many of these relatives does Bin Laden have? It's like the gift that keeps on giving, isn't it?
As soon as I hear the name Bin Laden, I'm just like, oh, I don't even pay the slightest attention. I'm just like Bin Laden. It's like, okay, this story is propaganda.
Yeah, well, if I was American, I'd just say, they say Bin Laden, I'd be like, yeah, okay, what do you want me to do? What money do you want me to hand over? What rights do you want me to check away?
Tweed Renegades.
I loved one of the tweets that you did this week. It was something along the lines of, men are 5 times more likely to be homeless than women, so will feminists be calling for a homelessness quota for women?
Oh, yeah, that got a huge number of retweets.
I know, it was great.
But that's feminism in a nutshell, isn't it? I mean, they talk about equality. Surely they would, if they're really concerned about equality, they would want to ensure that women too feel the burden of homelessness.
Mm.
Or should I say the benefits of homeless? Because after all, I mean, we're in a patriarchal society, and men are obviously homeless because that's where they want to be, because it's a patriarchy, see? So I think women should also have the benefit of that too.
That's right, share the privilege.
That's right.
What is it with this bloody word privilege? It's just like this new fad that's just started like 6 months ago or something. Everybody suddenly is talking about privilege.
Well, privilege, the whole idea is like they talk about white privilege. Like the fact that you grew up in a civilized society, it gives you privileges. But the thing is that people talk about white privilege, presumably ignore Asian privilege and Jewish privilege too, because they're groups of people who do better than whites.
Indeed, and I mean, it's luck basically where you're born. Nobody has a say in it, and yet they're trying to make people feel ashamed of it. It's exactly the sort of thing that the left has always repudiated when it comes to racism, blaming people for things that they can't control.
Yeah, well, that's right. And by extension, of course, you should be ashamed of it. Why are they trying to make you feel ashamed of it? Because they're trying to make you accept a lower standard of living through higher taxes and through redistribution of wealth.
Bloody ridiculous. So had you heard this term privilege before about 6 months ago? Because that was like the first time I heard it. Fairly. I had heard it before that, but yeah, it is a pretty new thing. Yeah, so this must be some new assault on us, I guess.
Well, it's a bit like, what is it, bullying?
Oh yeah, I know, exactly.
Yeah. Oh, you're bullying me. Oh, you're against gay marriage. You don't believe that sodomites should marry. Oh, you're bullying me.
Yeah, I'm offended. It's just incredible how they can make up these nonsense terms and just create these issues out of thin air, which are then used in order to pass these laws against our freedom. And of course, the other one that they're using is the old line about the hate media. And now Gillard's trying to shackle Murdoch by passing these new media laws. And one of the things that was most disturbing about the reaction to these laws is that so many of the Fairfax and ABC journalists were basically supporting the laws, or at least saying that Murdoch's reaction was disproportionate, which is very concerning because they obviously failed to realise that if Abbott gains government, he could potentially use these laws to silence them. And ultimately, these laws affect all of our freedoms in the long term.
Tweed Renegades.
Now, one of the concerns that we've been raising on the Tweed Renegades website recently is the distinction between true conservatives and libertarians. True conservative would be somebody like Cory Bernardi, for example. But increasingly what we're seeing is that those people are being ridiculed and shut out of the system. We even heard Tony Jones on Q&A describe Bernardi as being the Liberal Party's comedian. So we're seeing those people being pushed to the side, and the official voice of the non-left is being turned over to the libertarians, which to me is quite a concern.
Politically, I guess what you would say the more younger conservatives, I believe, are tending in more of a libertarian direction, more of a anti-New World Order direction, anti-government direction, I should say.
Yeah.
There is, actively questioning the role of the state, which is something that conservatives had not really traditionally done. They tried to traditionally operate within the paradigm, but I think there's more of a shifting outside the paradigm, questioning the role of the state and the what would you say, the heavy-handedness of the state, the oppression of the state.
That's right, and I'm all for questioning the state. It's just that the people that do that tend to be primarily libertarian and don't have respect for traditions like a true conservative does.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, I certainly identify with a lot of what the libertarians are talking about. But the thing is, I think, obviously I'm a paleo-conservative, but a lot of the concerns of libertarians and paleocons overlap.
The concerns do overlap, yes, but the response is different. It's like we were talking about in that article last Monday. Libertarianism can be very contradictory. For example, we had that the Imam who came out to Australia to preach his vile, extreme Islamic nonsense. Well, a true libertarian would have to say he has the right to free speech. And then you hear a lot of libertarians going back on that and saying, well, actually, he should be banned from the country.
Because at the end of the day, do you believe in the role of the state, I guess, to regulate who comes here? Well, if you do, then I guess by definition you're not a 100% libertarian, are you?
And of course the state should regulate who comes into your country. And theoretically they should regulate free speech. But obviously that's a bit more difficult to implement, because would you really trust the government with that responsibility, especially when the government's run by Julia Gillard? So that's when you understand the approach of the libertarians. But that aspect was more of a pragmatic thing. Now, of course, it's becoming part of the right-wing ideology.
Well, yeah, I mean, the thing is, okay, the paleocons are about family, the four pillars, right? The family, race, religion, etc. Now, libertarians don't recognise any of that. They're just like, oh, let's have everything free. Now, I think that libertarians are only starting to be taken seriously now because it's a knee-jerk reaction to the heavy hand of the state that we just want to be free, right?
Yeah, you've got representatives like Ron Paul who give it a good name, and then you've got the realistic representatives of libertarianism like Jeremy Clarkson. He's a realistic representation of how it's actually going to be represented in the community, where it's just like, I don't have any responsibility. All I want to do is drive fast cars and drink alcohol and smoke fags and not give a stuff about anything that I do having an impact on the community. That's the true libertarianism. That's how it's actually going to be in the real world.
So you've got on one hand, you've got the constitutional libertarians like Ron Paul, and then you've got arsehole libertarians like Jeremy Clarkson.
Yeah, not to saying that I don't like a lot of the stuff he says, simply because I can't believe some of the stuff he's able to say on TV and get away with. I love that. But it's just the fact that this is how it's actually going to translate into the real world.
Yeah, well, that's right. I mean, the thing is that, libertarianism is an ideological position, but everything is, of course, when you put something into the world or you put some kind of position out there, the world isn't just going to accept your ideology wholesale. There's always going to be, because of the way people operate, there's always going to have to be compromises in politics and whatnot, and there's culture and things like that. So you're never going to have a 100% libertarian or 100% socialist or whatever system it is that you're wanting to implement. So it would be a healthy dose of reality in all these things. And a position of reality would be a paleo-conservative position because it's happened before, and therefore it can happen again. Libertarianism has not happened before, or anarcho-capitalism where it's just the unregulated market. I mean, okay, the anarcho-capitalists will say, well, it happened in one particular state in Iceland in the 1530s or something, things that people could never verify. But really, it hasn't really happened. People can't put forward a position where it's actually happened. Yet they support it because it's a good theory. Now, the thing is that I would prefer something like paleo-conservatism which espouses the tenets that have worked for millennia.
Yes, and one of the things that we've frequently argued against on the Tweed Renegades website is when people allow ideologies to warp their thinking, and they support this ideology well above any reason. And people could well accuse me of being a paleoconservative ideologue, but I would say that it's an all-encompassing ideology which represents everything society used to stand for. It's not one particular interest group. It's not just standing up for women. It's not just standing up for freedom. It's standing up for everything in society that works.
Yes, that's a return to communal common sense, which Philip Atkinson in our Civilization website talks about. What was taken for granted in the past and the communal wisdom. He talks about communal wisdom, and then he talks about communal senility, which is what's happening at the moment.
Indeed. Well, on that note, Milton, I think we'd better wrap up. So thanks, everybody, for listening to the Tweed Renegades podcast number 6. If you have any thoughts on anything we've discussed, please leave us a comment or go to the Say Something link on the Tweed Renegades website and send us a message. And hopefully you'll hear us again soon. Thanks for joining us.